great question. You know, my job is to coach basketball, coach the team. The team's job is to play to their highest level. Part of coaching a team is finding strengths and putting them in position to use those strengths. And not, I don't get too emotionally worried about results one way or another. But I'm a competitive guy, and so my goal from a coaching perspective is to get these guys in position to have as much success as possible as soon as possible, and that's going to be our task every single day. And to do that as a team, we're going to, number one, have to come together because it's a new team, it's a new group of guys, and share a common goal. And that common goal has got to be the best we can be today, get better, and then keep getting better and better, and try to be as good as we can by the first game, the next game, and just do it as a day-by-day, step-by-step process.
You guys have run and coming back from injuries, they still don't have a good year. What's your approach to that? What do you take?
Well, so I think it's about, when guys are cleared by our medical staff. First of all, our medical staff's great. Having been here and getting a chance to spend time with Ed Lacert and his staff and our doctors and the people around here, they're really good at their job. And so one of the things I've always tried to do as a coach is not put myself in their role. They'll tell me when those guys are ready. Those guys will tell me when they feel ready, and then we'll go from there. And until then, you just coach the guys that are available, and you coach the guys that are ready to play. And again, you try to have plans for those things, but sometimes those plans are, it makes it a real challenge. I've always been a big believer in the next man up philosophy, and for each time there's a challenge or a trial by losing a guy because of injury, you have a great opportunity for somebody else. And sometimes, as we've seen in this league or any other league, all somebody needs is that opportunity to really shine. And so, you hope that that's the case when somebody goes down, that they have that idea, that mindset, and that they're physically and emotionally ready for that.
How do you envision Gerald's role on the team this season?
I think obviously he's a guy that can do a lot of different things. A lot of people would consider him to be a slasher and a rebounder and a guy that plays with great intensity and effort. He has had years where he's really shot the ball well. And I think his role is going to be that of a versatile guy that does a number of different things. The nice part about the Jeff Greens of the world, the Gerald Wallaces of the world, is that you can play a number of different people with them. They're not pigeonholed into a position. And I think the more guys like that you have, the better, because you can then, you can play Jeff and Gerald at the 2 and the 3. You could play them at the 3 and the 4. You could rotate them at the 3. You could rotate them at the 4. I mean, so you've got a lot of different options with those guys. And the more versatile you are, again, the more pairings you can play with. Usually, the more minutes you play.
Danny just said that he has no idea who's going to be the starting 5 or the second 5.
No, and I think about it all the time. Maybe it's paralysis by analysis, right? But I don't think it's fair because we haven't all been on the court together yet, and I think we're in a position where we've got a lot of guys that may be a better player in a one-on-one game, but may not fit the strengths of the other guys that'll be on the court, and so there may be a little mixing and meshing there where you maybe don't have sometimes you don't have your best guy playing with the other 4 guys as far as the next best player. You have the right fit for those other 4 guys. I think we have to find that. Again, that's part of building team. The good news about that is we're getting started. The bad news is it's a quick turnaround before you play next Monday. I think you have to use Jeff's versatility. I think Jeff's versatility is one of the strengths of our team. And we're going to ask him to do a lot. It's going to be a big burden for him because he's going to have to know more than one role, and that's part of being a really, really good player. You look at some of the teams in the league and how they played. You look at the finals last year, and all of a sudden the Spurs go small out of the blue. You look at guys like James playing the 4 in a lot of circumstances late in games. Really good players know how to play multiple positions and can make themselves impactful in all those positions. And I think we have to help him get to the point where he can, excel no matter what position he's in. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. Whether or not it's getting smaller, and certainly there's an emphasis on skill. There's an emphasis on the three-point line in general, because people are realizing that an average 3 is better than a bad 2, to take. And I'm not surprised that it is. Obviously, I think it's been an influence that has not just been here but abroad. But certainly, you end up at the end of the games. It's interesting. We always talk as coaches. You end up at the beginning of the season looking for all that size. At the end of games, you're looking for speed and ball handling and skill. And so it's an interesting dynamic.
As you hit that training camp, do you have any idea of the kind of style, offensive defense you want to implement?
Yeah, we've got a real idea of the style that we're going to implement and we're going to play. And the hope is that with Rondo's transition back to playing, being from some time away, and we don't know that time, but that he can get back into it pretty fluidly once he comes back. But I feel good about it. I feel good about the way that we're going to play defensively. I feel good about our plan of attack offensively. I think it will allow us to be versatile. I think it will allow us to move guys around when he comes back. And I think that's all been something that we've been spending a lot of time on the last 2 months.
How would you describe that style?
Well, I think I think on one end of the court, you want to be as tough to score on as possible, and obviously a very man-oriented system, but man with zone principles, not that much dissimilar from some of the better teams in the league defensively and what they try to do. And doesn't mean we're going to be there. It doesn't mean we're not a long way from being there. But from a technical and tactical standpoint, that'll be a big emphasis, and creating that identity and creating that's a real. The best team builder you can have is not an exercise that you do at night together, putt course or whatever the case may be. It's getting really good defensively. It's doing a really hard thing together. It's building that bond that way. So that's going to be a big important part. And then I think we've got to space the floor and play with pace. So whether that means when we're getting it up the floor, obviously we want to play in transition. But we're in the half court, I think the ball's got to move. I think we have to play with pace. I don't know that we'll be at our very, very best if we're isolated early in the shot clock. And so I think that's what we're going to try to do.
How much have you watched Rondo on film? How much have you talked to him to try to assimilate what you're saying in terms of coming up with the perfect plan?
He won't have any problem assimilating into how we're trying to play, because a lot of it is based on his strengths. And I've watched him a ton, met with him a ton, but I think when you have a guy of his caliber, then you try your best to fit to him. He doesn't need to fit to how I've played in the past. I need to fit to him, and that's the way I've approached each and every one of our teams that I've ever coached. Is you take your guys, you take their strengths, and you try to coach to their strengths the best you can.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
See you.